Okay, this is Alicia Moreno. Due to technical difficulties, I have to record this on my phone. Use my notes. So this is week 6. This is the 5th video. There were 3 readings this week. 2 of them were really academic, difficult to get through, and I was able to connect the first 2 to each other through the readings, but the last one I'm still kind of unsure as to why it was in this collection, although I have some other readings that I've done about the topic that definitely underlined the premise of the third article. So the first article was by Tony Erskine. It was called Coalitions of the Willing, Responsibilities to Protect, Informal Association, Enhanced Capacities, and Shared Moral Burdens. So the author used the examples initially of how compacts are formed between states to address things that are of a moral imperative. And these are more informal, temporary coalitions. And so the argument centered on whether these kinds of coalitions were impactful or whether the more formal coalitions like the UN or other organizations that are based or formed for a permanent basis or a specific mission should be utilized. And then the author talked about the 2 kinds of things that these coalitions generally look at are things that are either needed to be acted on right now, or they look at things that have happened in the past and make judgments based on how that activity happened, whether it was proper or appropriate. These coalitions are generally nations or states or nation states that form in order to address something regarding another nation state. Now, where this can go wrong, the author pointed out, is in instances such as when the United States was trying to rally support for going into Iraq. So I was part of that first wave, and at the time, it seems like forming those kinds of coalitions it's a way to nimbly respond to especially things that are seen as social injustices or human rights issues. Although there's human rights issues all over the world every day that we're failing to address. And so the danger, the author states, is that if you give these kinds of organizations the same kind of power that permanent organizations have, they can be formed for either the wrong reasons or really specific reasons that may have an agenda and not necessarily the agenda of helping whoever that they're supposed to be helping or righting whatever wrong that they're supposed to be addressing. The second article was by Shamburn. It was called The Friendship Club and the Wellspring of Civil Society. So this article actually started really interestingly. It talked about a drug addict who was found murdered, and her association with this group called the Friendship Club. And the man that wrote this article, and it was actually, I think, part of a speech that he had given, was a grant writer, and he was approached by this group called the Friendship Club, and they handed over their book of, I don't know, meeting minutes and notes and the history of their club. And so this was a social club, and what he was able to discern from looking through this book was, over the scope of this club's history, the trials and travails of what they had gone through, but also that they were an outlet for the immediate community to address life-changing decisions. A lot of it had to do with financial things that they could help with, but also things like approaching landlords to help get someone not evicted, even if they couldn't help out with the rent. So a group of people that are coming together to try to support a community member in the ways that they individually and collectively can. So I saw the way that these two things tied together was the formation of these informal, or I guess non-organizational groups to address social wrongs. The third article was by a group with a main writer was I think you pronounce it Jory, and it's called How Diverse Users and Activities Trigger Connective Action Via Social Media. And so this was a study that was based on a Twitter campaign called, it's like hashtag Look Like an Engineer. And so the research, it looked like maybe it was a dissertation, was based on research questions centered around a woman who had started this campaign because she had posted up some advertising with her photo on it, and she's a very attractive woman, and she was given a lot of slack by male engineers saying that she only did that to increase the male applicant pool of engineers, because then they'd see, oh, like there's women in this field, this is great, not to encourage diversity of women going into engineering. So that's what the study was done on. Now, I had a hard time seeing the connection with this. I did find the article interesting, but only because I just read another article on feminism regarding the use of the, a few years ago, I think it was like a menstrual product line had done a set of commercials, and it was hashtag Like a Girl, like hit like a girl, run like a girl, blah, blah, blah. And so the article discussed how feminism is kind of being used to grandstand other people's causes, because it's not necessarily a feminist cause, not the menstrual products, not the sports and all those things, but it's still a division of genders, and we have to be really careful if we allow that on either side, because then we're saying that it's okay to do those things. It was a really interesting article from a feminist point of view that didn't support a really traditional feminist agenda. So that when I was reading the article on the hashtag Like an Engineer, that's kind of what it reminded me of, but I didn't see a clear link to the first two articles. That's all I have. Thanks.